And where did you grow up?
Okay, that's a good question. So I am from California. I was born in San Pedro, California.
Okay.
And I was raised, though, in Washington, D.C. In Washington, D.C. So I grew up a Washingtonian, an East Coast child. But I have a love for the beach, basically. Until you're in a position where you're captive, you don't embrace your freedom. If you think of your regular life, you will always find something to complain about. Just in general. You're going to be like, oh, I hate my school. Oh, I hate my teachers. Oh, my parents get on my nerves. And so I just grew up like any other teenager. I wanted to be a star. I wanted to be an actress. I had complaints about living in the city. I had complaints about my high school. It was just normal for me in general. And then, you know, after I kind of started getting an idea of what life really had to offer, and I had kind of embraced my complaints, like we all do, and say, this is just how it is. I'm not going to leave DC. I can't just go back to California right now. I can't just go be a star right this moment. Right around this time frame, I'm growing up. I'm learning a lot about life. I had a child, but I was also a 3.5 student, and I was headed to college. I was headed to Lancaster Bible College, in fact. So I, had some bumps in the road as a teenage, mother, but I also had a lot of goals, and I was succeeding and headed towards those goals. And then captivity happened. Then I was abducted into sex trafficking. So life was, I could say, a normal teenager. I became a teenage mom at 18, but I still was able to overcome those things and, still head towards my goals of college. I wasn't going to waste that 3.5 GPA. I loved my baby, and, we were going to find a way to make it happen. So life was normal. So I was recruited basically by kind of making one of those decisions that your parents tell you not to make, or the school says, don't get in the car with a stranger, right? You think you hear that a million times until an opportunity presents itself. It's dark, it's late, it's 9:30, I missed the bus, and a 70-year-old man that looked like my grandpa, kind of was like, hey, young lady, it's awfully late out here. You don't need to be walking by yourself. It's not very safe. He used all these key words. I'm looking at him like, okay, grandpa, if you try anything, I'm pretty sure I can take you. But unfortunately, he had been paid by a trafficker to pick up young girls who feel safe getting in his car. He's old, he's disarming, and he's not what I looked at 19, because I'm thinking there's nothing that this old man is going to try to do to me. And there's certainly nothing that I'm going to allow him to do. But unfortunately, he did get paid by a trafficker. And so by the time I realized we were about to go in the wrong direction, he pulled up, and the trafficker and an enforcer were right there at the corner waiting for me, and they jumped in the car. So now I'm trapped. I'm trapped by, two men. One was armed, with a gun. And this is when they give you that moment of choice that we know isn't a real choice. You can come with me, or you can face danger. For me, this was about 14 years ago. And, they had to follow you. So what my traffickers would do was they would watch a particular bus stop. And they would watch that bus stop every day, and they would see different ones who were getting off the bus, and they would target specific females that met the criteria that they were looking for. So as a young person, you never think about your bus stop being a place where predators are searching for you. But you're not thinking of it because you're expecting that creepy person to look a particular way, but they can look any kind of way, and so basically they had followed me, and they, waited for an opportune time to for me to accept a ride from someone. So they would wait to see who missed the bus. And, my traffickers at the time would send different people. They would send women, girls, to be like, hey, girl, you need a ride? I saw you just missed the bus. Are you just going to the station? They would, pay old men. People who were unsuspecting. Because, I actually contacted a family friend, which was just a girlfriend of mine. But, you have the friends who actually know the whole family. But it was based on the instructions of my trafficker, actually. So and there was some specific things that the trafficker wanted me to tell them, which was, hey, I know you guys are looking for me, but I just needed a break. I ran away. I was tired of being, a young mother by myself. I just need to go clear my mind, and I'm okay. I'm with my boyfriend, and kind of make them feel like this was my choice. I ran away, and I wanted to do my own thing. So that's a tactic as well. Because what happens when you call your family, you say, I'm running away, I don't want to be here, I'm gonna go with my boyfriend, I'm gonna go do me. They can still be worried about you, but at the same time, they're gonna also be very angry. And that anger turns into a confrontation that you don't even want to have with your family. No. After, of course. Because the rejection, I just wasn't ready for the rejection. The way I was rejected, by different people who I communicated with, I knew that it was only going to be that much more intense with my parents. So basically, that's kind of how that went. But they did see me afterwards. And it took me a while to tell them what really happened, but they all knew. And now we're here, So.
Did you have him before or after?
I had my son before. He was about 1 year old when I was trafficked. So I was taken away from him. My trafficker did that purposefully, though, because he used my son as leverage. That was the continual threat. They had followed me. They knew where I lived, and the threat that they gave me was that we'll hurt your son. We know where you live. Because if they're following you, they're watching a bus stop. They're also watching where you're going home. So they were like, we know where you live, here's your address, and if you don't go with us and stay with us, we're going to send someone to hurt your son. And if they go through that much to kidnap you, then 9 times out of 10, you're going to believe them, that they're going to hurt your son. So, so I was taken away from him. But, all these years later, of course, I'm reunited with my son shortly after getting out. And so he's with me, and he's 17 now, so he's going to college soon. So, all is well on that end, but for each survivor, that's going to be a very personal thing, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because every individual is completely different. So you have to go through several different instances. One was I escaped on the inside because at some point in time I cried out to God, and I began to feel free through my experience with God, and meeting Jesus, me meeting him in a scenario where I was being beaten, and horrible traumatic things were happening to me, and I found relief and freedom on the inside first, through encountering that relationship with God, and then things begin to happen physically and outwardly to ensure that freedom, where my trafficker soon after was arrested, but he wasn't arrested for trafficking, he was arrested for murder, because that's exactly how dangerous these environments can be. So it is intensely personal and very different. It will be very different for each victim of trafficking, how they actually escape. What I would want to say is that you don't deserve this. I would first say that because I believe that I deserved what was happening to me.
I felt like
it was really my fault. I felt like because it was my choice to get in the car with that old man,
then I was
the reason this was happening to me. So I would first say it's absolutely not your fault.
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
And you can
when you make a bad decision, whether it's to go with that boy, get in that car, or that first decision to say yes to him, whether it's out of fear, out of you think this is my boyfriend and I owe him.
Once you make
that first decision that you think is your choice,
you start really blaming
yourself. So I would first say,
it's not your
it's
fault.
not your fault. You did not cause someone to do this to you. You do not owe anyone your body or your mind. You do not have to be captive to this. You are not alone because you feel really, really alone.
You feel like there's no one
you can talk to. You feel like there's no one that you can reach out to. No one's going to understand.
There are places
out here you can go to. You can speak out, but don't feel like you're by yourself in this.
And
it's okay to speak up because this is a dangerous situation, and you don't want to be there
for the rest of your life.
So much more out there for you. And to be careful, pay attention. Who are you talking to? Who are you meeting at the mall? Who's offering to buy you a pair of shoes? Who's offering to buy you a purse? Why is that older person or older boy interested in you? Yeah, and so these are the things that I would say to any young girl, any young boy, anybody who is going through that or who may be facing that.
And to kind of
look out for these warning signs. In general, people need to know is that
though
a trafficking victim may look free and outside or look like a prostitute or a stripper. Now, granted, not all prostitutes, not all strippers are trafficking victims, but just in general, they may look free, but they're very much not free.
They may look like
it's their choice, but it's very much not their choice. There's always someone else pulling the strings.
So I would want,
in general, for people to understand that, so they don't treat victims like they're the reason that this is happening.
One memory.
That is so difficult.
There's so many memories.
There's so many memories.
Is there a specific? I have so many memories. That's really tough.
That's a really tough question.
One thing that stood out
the most to me.
I would say that. Look.
Now this Skype is going to get really long because I'm really. It's so difficult to just pinpoint one memory.
I would say. I will give you several memories
in different categories because this is the best way to do it. My memory of my recruitment process. The one memory that stood out in my recruitment process was how quickly everything happened.
It was not a long turnover.
Like everything happened where I was recruited, kidnapped, and held captive all in one day.
It's very quick.
It's
It's like a blink of an eye.
And that stood out to me because a lot of times
they may
do long processes and stalking you and preparing you and things like that. But the moment it happens, you're in. And that kind of stood out to me about all this happened in one day. Like one day, like it's like boom, 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 and you're just that feeling of being trapped. That was kind of that memory of just feeling like I have no choice, right?
My memory of escape
was
how absolutely
free and happy I was to
go back into the sunlight.
I have this thing that I talk about in the play where you feel like a vampire, right? Because everything you do is at night and you sleep during the day and things like that. In fact, you might be able to see this little picture behind me, and it's kind of like a girl, and she's I don't know if you can see it. I can't put my camera there. But it's like a girl, and it's like the sun, like hugging her, like it's okay. I remember, walking away, well, escaping. I wasn't walking away, but the trafficker was arrested, and everyone was gone, and I was finally just free. It was daytime.
I had met the Lord.
I had met the Lord. My heart was filled with God. I knew He had forgiven me. I knew that He loved me. I know that He didn't want this to actually happen to me, and that bad people had this in place for me.
And how
wonderful it felt to be outside
in the sunlight. And
people can take sunlight and outside for granted.
So that memory sticks with me
Forever and ever and ever. In fact, like the sun, that's my thing. Sunshine is my thing. And that's one of the very reasons why I love sunshine. I love the beach. I love going outside because it's a reminder of my freedom every day. So